Hello everyone, this is Nabir Salam, also known as the Noble Player, and today I'm going to be talking about Kung Fu Panda 4. This is the fourth installment in the Kung Fu Panda series, and in this movie we see Po, who's a seasoned dragon warrior. He learns that he has to step down from that position and he has to pass it on to someone else to be the next dragon warrior. So he has that decision to make, while also he has to go on a journey to stop a new villain called the Chameleon, a new threat actually who can actually shapeshift and can actually take in the abilities and strengths of Po's previous enemies from the previous movies. Now, before I get into the film itself, I just first want to say that I'm actually a really big fan of the first two Kung Fu Panda films. I think they're near perfect movies for the animation, the action, the comedy, characters, and there's so many amazing themes and messages of those first two movies that are instantly quotable and instantly really relatable in so many ways. And then the third film to me was a bit of a disappointment. I like the story in its own on paper, where it's kind of concluding Po's journey to become the Dragon Warrior and the savior to all of China. But the tone actually being a lot more lighthearted and being way too jokey took a lot out of the stakes for me, unfortunately. But it was still okay enough actually to be what was a worthy trilogy within the first three films. And so with this fourth one coming out, I was actually not too excited about it, only because I felt like, what could you do to continue the story going forward? And when I saw the trailer for this one specifically, I thought it was just going to be a movie where it's trying to push itself to be a reboot for a brand new trilogy without having a proper, strong story to justify its existence. Well, after I saw the movie yesterday, all my fears and concerns from the trailer actually were pretty much confirmed. This is not a very good movie in my opinion. This is easily the weakest in the Kung Fu Panda series, and it's kind of a disappointment knowing how amazing I feel like the first two films were, let alone how amazing this franchise really is for a lot of people. But before I actually get to some of the negatives, I actually want to first go to the positives. The first thing I can say is that for a Kung Fu Panda film, you always expect good animation and some good action set pieces. And luckily, I can tell you that both of those things work really, really well. While the Kung Fu action in this film, while it's not as good of a lot of depth, in my opinion, as the first two movies, it still does a pretty good job being visually arresting and compelling, actually, for the most part. And Po, as a character, he still remains consistent, especially coming off of 8 years from the previous installment. Jack Black is just so good, actually, in this role. He still remains to be that very charismatic, very active, and very capable hero, actually, whenever he's fighting against a new threat. But other than that, honestly, the rest of the film to me is completely lackluster and is completely unconvincing in the entire plot. And it honestly, it feels like just one blatant giant setup for a brand new trilogy. But even by doing that, it completely ignores or disregards so much of what came before it. Just start off with the plot of the film, which again felt very forced and very unconvincing. So the idea about Po having to step down and kind of to understand and maybe to learn about change and how we need to grow from that, I think is a really good premise actually that could actually work. Unfortunately, the premise itself, the execution of it is completely lackluster, like I had previously mentioned before. This movie feels very fast-paced. It never takes its time to breathe. Po as a character, he still kind of remains the same in that he's still very young and fresh, and he can still take in a lot of fights, honestly, and he's always thinking to himself oh, I should still continue to be the Dragon Warrior. It just doesn't seem like he's growing necessarily from that. And one of the things they do to convey this message is actually a new character named Zen, or Zen, if I mispronounce that name, who's a fox actually voiced by Awkwafina, who I continue to keep thinking to myself, why is Awkwafina starring in so many of these voice roles? Her voice is just so irritating and annoying in my opinion. I think she's good in some other films, like The Farewell, where she gives a dramatic performance, a real one. But now she's typecast to be in every single animated movie that comes out, where she has to play the very fast-talking, very loud-mouthed sidekick. It just gets really, really irritating, unfortunately. And with her character, it's she's a thief, and throughout the film, she has to learn how to be a better person, which I feel like it's not very convincing as a new protagonist, as a new character coming into the franchise. Because when I think about like Poe, for instance, like in the beginning when you first when in the original film, he loved kung fu. He wanted to be a part of the Furious Five. He wanted actually to be better than what he was originally. That actually makes him for a much more entertaining and much more engaging character throughout, and that's why it was so good to see in the 3 movies to become a dragon boy, to become the hero of all of China. So that really fell off of me. And then also we have the villain, the Chameleon, actually, who, first of all, her name is the Chameleon, and they literally stress out her name to be like, the Chameleon, which saying it does not make it intimidating at all, let alone the name is just very uninspired. Her whole motivation is completely contrived and really gimmicky for her powers. She's like, she wanted to do kung fu, but she couldn't do kung fu because she was deemed too short. While, in this universe, we already see characters like Mantis and Monkey who are way shorter than the Chameleon in this movie, and in the case of this universe, and that's kind of what they're gonna give her, and she's like, I became a sorceress. Yet, we never see her really use her powers properly. All she does, she just takes in all the enemies from all of Poe's past villains, and that's pretty much it. She just shapeshifts, and it doesn't really mean anything because Poe already knows how to defeat them in the first place. There's nothing convincing about that, honestly. And then it's also like I was mentioning before, how it's really fast paced. There's not a lot of time to breathe, honestly. You're just kind of feeling exhausted about the entire thing. A lot of the jokes don't really work at all. It feels very one note and very childish. And also, one thing that really bothers me a lot is that, I'm not one of those guys, like, for example, who thinks like fan service is necessarily like a good thing necessarily in movies. I think fan service is kind of what's ruining a lot of modern movies lately. It's kind of becoming a lot lazier, but I think there's some exceptions that can actually work if there's an actual payoff to it. Unfortunately, even for this film, it has some of the worst fan service I've ever seen put to screen. Like, one of the things they first start off with, like, okay, so the Furious Five, right? So you have the Furious Five, actually. Where were they in the film? They weren't even there, honestly. They're like literally like at the end of the movie, and they have nothing to do in this film. I don't know why they were absent pretty much. While this film focuses a lot on Poe trying to like change his role, trying to evolve as a character. They're just not there for some reason. I'm not really sure what it is. Maybe they didn't pay enough for the actors enough for them, but that was a bit of a disappointment. And then also, if you look at the poster, for example, like the main poster, you see a character, Tai Lung, actually, who was the villain in the first movie. They're like, the Chameleon was like, oh, I can bring back all the villains from Poe's past, for example. Tai Lung, okay, does nothing in the film. He has a few lines, but it's completely irrelevant. He does nothing to contribute to the story overall or the conflict. And then also, if you thought that was, without spoiling anything, if you thought that was bad, and the whole point of the Chameleon is to bring back all the other villains, it's even worse. Because literally, I said nothing. It's nothing at all. It's the worst type of fan service. It's just like, oh, visually it's there, but they literally do nothing for the entire movie. And it's just, one of the things also I have to mention before I finish is like, they ultimately what they do is they repurpose same phrases and themes and messages from the previous movies, and they put it into this film to repurpose the dialogue, and it's all interpreted onto one character named Zhen, because Zhen is actually a new character that's going to be actually going forward in this franchise. And it irritates me so much because I'm just like, this is just so pandering, it's just so lazy. You can't come up with anything original anyways for these characters to grow. It just felt very lackluster. And by the end of the film, I just sat there thinking, yeah, they're just going to try to actually reboot this whole franchise with a new trilogy that I'm just personally not interested in. And I'm probably just going to stick with the first 2 movies, to be honest. They were really incredible, one of a kind. I'll probably just stick with the third film, even though I wasn't a big fan of the third movie. At least it had an ending to it, to this whole thing. And again, like, at the end of the day, it's such a huge disappointment because at the same time, it's like DreamWorks, for a company that I really like, actually, since I was much younger, just a few years ago, they put up Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which I think is actually one of the best animated movies I've ever seen in the last few years. That movie is so good, we're actually all getting a Shrek 5. Now I'm hoping when Shrek 5 does come out that it's actually going to be really good and they put a lot of attention and care into that, because I quite love Shrek. And for me, it's like I hope it's not as lackluster and very forced and rushed as this film was. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if there were like multiple drafts of this story for Kung Fu Panda 4, and it's just like they had so many ideas, they had to actually take them away because, you know, they just tried to force something out there just because of brand recognition. And so, yeah, overall, I didn't really like this film at all. And not for me, honestly. I think if you have really young kids, they're gonna like it. But then again, like, we're so far removed from what I think the franchise really was with the first two films, which were absolutely full of depth and wonder and true brilliance, in my opinion. So, on a scale of 0 to 10, skadooshes, I'm gonna give it 4 out of 10 skadooshes. I was gonna say skadoomed, honestly, because for me this franchise is doomed. But like, honestly, it's like it's gonna make a lot of money. I'm certain of that. We'll probably get a new trilogy, and that's kind of where that is. And yeah, that's just kind of my opinion on the film. I would love to know what you guys think down below in the comment section below. Do you guys agree with my opinion? Do you disagree with my opinion? Do you like the film? Do you not like the film? I would love to know what you guys thought in the comment section below. And I do want to say also that I apologize this review is coming a bit later than usual, because this film just came out a few days ago in Cyprus as opposed to 2 weeks ago in the US. And regardless, I still wanted to make a video about this because, you know, I saw the movie. I was really looking forward to talking about this film on my channel. And at the same time, I do want to say as well that there are going to be a few delays here and there within the channel. You know, for instance, like I know Godzilla vs. Kong the second one's gonna come out actually in a few days, but I'm actually gonna not be able to see that immediately on the weekend, just because I'm gonna wait for my younger sister so we can watch that one together. You know, Ghostbusters Afterlife unfortunately has not come out to Cyprus. It's gonna be next month, so you have to wait till April for that to come out. And also at the same time, I did read that there's actually gonna be a demo for Stellar Blade, the new game that's coming for the PS5 this weekend. So I hope I can play that game, maybe do a live stream, maybe do not live stream, but maybe like a recorded playthrough of it, and be able to put it on the channel as well. And if you guys like, you know, more content about this, you know, movies, video games, reviews, you know, reports, anything like that, I would love, you know, for example, if you can put the thumbs up on the video, be able to subscribe to the channel to see more content like this. I'm really excited to see where this channel will grow. And until then, I will see you guys on the next video. See ya.